Hi everyone, my name is Melene Rossouw. I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm also an activist within the Women Lead movement. Welcome to all of you to this talk, and I hope that you'll find some inspiration from the talk today. So I am 35 years of age. I'm from Bellville here in Cape Town. I've lived here all my life, born and bred here. I have had the opportunity through my career to have moved up to Johannesburg once and to Pretoria twice, but I found myself back in Cape Town every single time because this is what I call home. So my background is that I am a lawyer. My professional background is that I'm a lawyer by profession. I did my law degree at the University of the Western Cape, completed that in 2006. After that, I was offered a job at a law firm, and I worked at Miller Bosman LaRue. I completed my articles there. It was one of the best 2 years of my life because in that 2 years, I also discovered that I knew I was going to be a successful lawyer, but I also knew I was going to be a very poor lawyer because I couldn't charge people money because of the fact that I grew up in a very dysfunctional and disadvantaged background, not in terms of my home setting, but in terms of the community in which I grew up in on the Cape Flats. I grew up with people that are poor, that are unemployed. I grew up in violence, happening around me. And that was the context of my life. My surroundings, my environment gave birth to who I am. It influenced my understanding of the world. But anyway, so 2 years later, after completing my articles, I became an attorney in April 2009. And in that year, I was also appointed to the Constitutional Court to work as a legal researcher to Judge LB Sachs, who's a veteran judge. Everyone knows him. I think the highlight for me LB's term, because he finished off his term as a Constitutional Court judge, and I was the lucky law researcher to finish off his term with him, which was very emotional as well, because he's a brilliant judge, and to say goodbye to a very successful career at the Constitutional Court was a difficult thing. Anyways, a year later, I came back. I worked at the Western Cape High Court, worked with various esteemed judges, Judge Lope, Judge Erasmus, Judge Musa, who's unfortunately no longer with us. And those people also, these judges also influenced the way that I thought and think about society and societal challenges, etc. And then I thought, okay, cool, I'm going to obviously see if I can throw my hat in the ring, because there was a position that came out in the president's office at the Union Building. I was 24 years at the time, and I applied for the job in the presidency. It was the position for Cabinet Committee Secretary. And I got the job. It was a tough interview, but I think the whole experience of just being picked up at the airport and being driven to the Union Buildings and just being in the space of absolute power, I didn't care whether I was going to get the job or not. I was taking selfies there at the Union Buildings because I just wanted to say I was here, Anyway, but I got the job. I have no idea. That was the most intimidating interview that I've ever done. I think there was about 10 people on that panel that appointed me to that position. I worked in the presidency for about a year or so. After that, I was headhunted by a minister called Minister Martinez van Schalkwyk. Many people know him as used to be the leader of the New National Party that went over to the ANC, and he became the Minister of Tourism. He said, listen, I need a media spokesperson. I said, I have no media background. I'm a lawyer. He said, well, you can learn. If you're willing to learn, then take the job. So speech writing, becoming a spokesperson. I was in the government working with the ministers. And then later on, I was working as a special advisor to another minister of sport and recreation. It was really a very interesting experience, all of those experiences collectively. And I think that also led to the reason why I started the Women Lead movement and the organization that I'm currently in. So I've morphed from a lawyer to a legal researcher into a cabinet committee secretary, to a spokesperson, to an advisor, now to an activist. So my life has really been very exciting, to say the least, very stressful, but extremely exciting. So the Women Lead movement has two key objectives. Initially, it was only going to be one, but I couldn't, get myself to only focusing on that one particular aspect, and that was to promote an active and participatory citizenry. And the reason why we wanted to do that, I specialized in my master's degree. I didn't tell you that I did my master's degree in public and constitutional law, and I specialized in public participation. Because, I mean, also based on my experience at the Constitutional Court, I found that government was taking decisions on behalf of our people without consulting or engaging on our people on serious socio-economic issues. You know, and one of the cases that really defined, you know, why we as directors chose this particular pillar to work on was the Joe Slovo mass eviction case that happened here in Cape Town. I mean, there was going to be upgrading. They were going to build houses for the people, but in order to build the houses, they had to remove the people from the informal settlement out first, and then once the houses is built, they would move them back. But it was the way the government went about doing that was the problem, and that the court found that the government did not engage people meaningfully in terms of the plan, the time, how this was going to happen, what they had to say about the fact that they were being relocated, how this was impacting their lives, their personal lives, their professional lives, etc. And that was the reason why we started, you know, the Women Lead movement initially, was to promote that active and participatory citizenry, where we are saying we need to hold government accountable, not only for the decision that they make, but the lack of consultation and engagement with the people of South Africa when they take those decisions on their behalf. Because this democracy means government by the people. You cannot have a democracy without having people having an influence in how decisions are being made. And that was a problem. But what we discovered, however, was that our people did not understand the processes of democracy. They did not understand the Constitution. I mean, I specialize in the Constitution. I understand what human rights are about. Many people didn't know that they had particular human rights or how to enforce human rights. They didn't know that there was 3 tiers of government. There was 3 pillars of government, for example, and who does what at what time. And it was very important for me and for the directors of Women Lead Movement at the time to educate people about democracy. And I know it sounds bizarre. We're almost 30 years into democracy, but I can tell you now that based on research, 50% of South Africans are not aware of the Constitution of South Africa. They have heard of the Constitution, but they have no idea what the Constitution of South Africa entails. So how can you have a progressive South African society if people do not even understand the fundamentals of what this democracy entails? So that was the one part. The second component, the objective of Women Lead Movement, was to promote a gender equal society, hence the name, the Women Lead Movement. Now, many people often confuse my work with gender-based violence, and I know that gender-based violence is a massive, massive problem, not only in South Africa, but on the African continent as a whole. But that is not what we do. We are fighting the giant. We are not fighting the giant's baby. Gender-based violence is the baby of the giant. The giant is gender inequality. It is because of gender inequality in politics, in the economy, in health, in society, that women have been so oppressed to a point where abuse has become a norm. Because of the fact that women do not have the negotiating power within relationships, within institutions. They are not on an equal footing with men. And that is what is causing gender-based violence. And I still believe, and that's my philosophy, that if we can fix the system of gender inequality in South Africa, and in the African continent, in fact, globally, we will see a reduction in gender-based violence. Because what is gender-based violence ultimately? It is the power, control, where the males feel that they are dominating in the household, they are dominating in the workspaces, and women are seen as inferior, as weak, because of the fact that they have not been given the equal opportunities and access to opportunities like men, like boys have all these years. And that is the fight. That is ultimately the fight that we are for. So basically on 2 pillars, those are the kind of things that I do. It has not been the easiest task, Tammy. I mean, over the last few years, we've been in operation for the last 3 years. We've reached over more than 2,000 girls and women. And there are many ways to skin a cat. Women Lead Movement is defined on 3 main pillars: education, like you've mentioned, the empowerment, and the advocacy. So with regard to the education, there are numerous programs that we have. I think currently we have in our vault about 20 programs that we've developed where we go into communities. And I just want to make this very, very clear. We are not serving the elites in Women Lead Movement. We are serving women that we have grown up with in communities, because it's those women that are mostly marginalized and oppressed and suppressed and is not given the opportunities. You know, so you would find us in communities where there are high levels of unemployment, high levels of poverty, high levels or low levels of education, because those are the women that needs us most. Okay, so our programs is not necessarily accredited. Not that I believe that whether it's accredited or not makes it any difference, because it's not that you can go with your 2 credits to go and apply for a degree at the university. I think that whole notion is absolutely bizarre. But we thrive in informal education, the education that is normally missing within the household itself. You know, the education that teaches you about your self-esteem, the personal development component of who you are, things that you're supposed to learn in your house. Now, because of circumstances, you're not learning it there. So where do you learn it? You don't learn it in school. Someone needs to come in to teach you these things. So that's the one. So we have personal development, conflict management, problem solving skills, women in leadership, a whole range of programs that we offer in the educational space. That we offer to these women, as also to young girls in high schools, because I mean, prevention is better than cure. I think the reason why, you know, I've not been met with so much support by many activists out there is because I drive a very strong message of prevention. I am not someone that believes that we have to be a reactive society, but be proactive in what we do. If we can prevent gender-based violence or prevent gender inequality from manifesting itself right at the onset, that is where you make the change, because that is where it started. So we need to go back there. Instead of building more shelters, instead of being reactive, and you know, I understand that we, for example, need to build more shelters. It's important because gender-based violence, for example, is such a huge issue in South Africa. But the problem is it's the same like building more prisons. It's building more prisons because the criminals are getting more. We're not dealing with the root causes of why these people are going to prison. Instead, we want to build more prisons to get them into the prison, but we're not rehabilitating them. We are not helping them. We're not empowering, inspiring, motivating these people to think differently about things. And so that is why I believe that we need to prevent the situation by creating these strong, independent, self-confident women at a very young age in order for them to take proper decisions in their life going forward, and to prevent them from being in abusive relationships, for example, or prevent them from being economically abused, you know, in the future. So that's the one. The empowerment. We have just recently launched the Women Economic Empowerment Program. Definitely not my strong point. I mean, I've never specialized in entrepreneurship, but I don't want to. That is why we partnered with, you know, big corporate investments, companies like Cabana Investments, in order for us to grow again small to medium-sized businesses, because that is our focus. We're not focusing on big businesses. Big businesses are getting enough money. They're getting enough support. But what about our women in the communities that is selling that fruit and veg? What about the woman that is doing the baking, you know, or running that hair salon in that local community? Is she getting the business support that she needs in order to grow her business, in order to employ? Because it's that woman that is going to employ 2 or 3 other people from that community to earn a salary. How can we support and grow those women-owned businesses to become formidable institutions where they can create jobs, you know, make their profits, and, you know, just be an economic force within their community? And then lastly, the advocacy part is where, for example, I go up. That's, I think, 80% of what I do is to speak on various platforms. A platform like this, for example, is an advocacy platform. A platform at a conference is an advocacy platform. It's where I go out and I say my piece and I drop the mic and I leave, because that is what I do, you know. So people ask me to come and to really speak about tough issues, because they know that I'm very honest about these issues. I have nothing to benefit from the situation. So for me, you know, instead of people soft-soaping the truth, which I have a serious problem with, especially in the South African context we find ourselves in today. We need more people that is willing to be honest about what the state of affairs is in South Africa, or issues affecting women, instead of trying to sugarcoat the situation. So that is one of it. The other aspect is where we, for example, with these new laws that comes out, we would give inputs on those laws. We would have engagements with community members or young people and say, listen, here, there's a new law. They want to pass this law in Parliament. Is there anything that you would like to add to this particular law? So that is what we do. We would give inputs on legislation as it comes out. to ensure that the legislation is well-rounded, that it touches on everything, etc. But there's a range of other things, but predominantly those three things are what I define Women Lead Movement to be.
And I think,
Tommy, especially 2020, I mean, you can imagine the world shut down. Everything, businesses shut down entirely. Besides the aspect of the funding component, which is massive because it's a non-governmental organization. We are dependent on donor funding in order to operate. And what has been happening over the last year is that basically we've been operating from our own pockets. Everything that we've done, all the achievements, and that is what makes our work so significant, is that we continued to push out work. We continued, whether we used online communications on social media, we did, educational campaigning every single month over the COVID period, talking about gender-based violence, or talking about, the issues that young girls faces, or just generally. I mean, there's so many campaigns you can go and watch on our Facebook page, but we continued the work irrespective. So funding is always a big challenge. 2 years ago, I would have been very lofty and say, no, funding is not important. It's what's in your heart. No, funding is very important if you want to continue doing great work and reach more people. And I think funding in South Africa, because I think we have over 200,000 NGOs in South Africa currently, and we're all fighting over a very small pot of money. So the sector is definitely not a sustainable sector at all. It's not. You either need to collaborate or you will fail. You will not make it. Another challenge that I have is that in this space specifically, there's a lot of organizations that is extremely territorial about their space. So territorial that they are not willing to collaborate with other organizations to achieve the mission, which I think is also, I mean, cutting your nose to spite your face, because we all need each other. We are not in competition with each other. We are there to support each other in order to become a pillar of strength for those women who desperately needs us in society. So with the sector itself, it's very, very, very competitive. And not that competition is a problem. It's when competition becomes dirty that I think to myself, are we really doing things for the right reasons? And then I mean, yeah, for me, I think those two things are for me the predominant challenges at this moment in time. Okay, so when we started, we had no programs whatsoever. I think I developed the first manual on human rights and democracy. Now we have about 20 programs that we've developed over the last 3 years, which I am very proud of, because we didn't pay people to do it. We did our own research, we got the experts in to work with us, and we got those programs developed. Another huge achievement for me was the fact that we established our first office outside of South Africa in Madagascar. We negotiated with, but I mean, I know the gender rights activists there. I met her through the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program. I thought that she would be a brilliant ambassador for Women Lead Movement. During COVID, they actually went ahead and they registered the organization in Madagascar. Our next step is either Namibia or Uganda. One of the two. We have been in talks with gender rights activists there. Come and tell you, Women Lead Movement extends beyond the boundaries of South Africa. This organization is not a South African-based organization. It might be registered here, but the vision of the movement is too great in order for it to be here, and in order for it to be with a Melene. I was the founder of it. I dreamt it out, but it was for other people to take over the vision and to lead and implement the vision. That is what I'm seeing, and that is what I would like to see going forward. Women Lead Movement is going, with or without me, it is going to become one of the strongest Pan-African women movements in Africa. I have no doubt. Whether it's going to happen in the next 5 years or 10 years, there's no doubt that it's going to happen, because there are gender rights activists that are very much interested in the work that we do. In fact, Women Lead Movement, irrespective of how difficult it was with funding, etc., if you research our work and you research our reach, it's international. It's across the continent. I mean, we speak on platforms in Africa and overseas. So the message that Women Lead Movement is sharing is a powerful message. Though many people in South Africa might not see it in that way, there are people out there that understands it, that is grabbing onto the vision, and that wants to implement that same vision within their countries. And that is the beauty, and something that I'm very, very, very happy about. I think it's one of the biggest achievements also. The fact that we've grown, I think when we started, we were three directors. I'm the one that's full-time employed in the organization. And we've appointed numerous other people as well to be part of it. You know, the fact that we could establish such formidable structures within the company. I mean, it can't operate without a constitution and without a board and without, you know, and to put those things in place took time, but it came. You know, so that is fantastic. Also, the fact that we've reached 2,000 people through our programs. That is amazing, you know, and the fact that the girls are, especially the young girls that we educate, is responding so positively towards, you know, the message of being an empowered woman, you know, and wanting to become active citizens within South Africa. I think for me, what has really impacted me the most is the fact that I can see that our message has influenced the minds and the hearts of many ordinary South Africans. Not only influence them in the way that, oh goodness, I feel so inspired, but it moved them to action. That is what activism is about. It's not only about inspiring and motivating people to feel good about themselves. It's about inspiring them so much that it moves them into action to do something about their personal circumstances or situation that they find themselves in. And I've seen that happening to hundreds of people where they say, you know, was it not for that talk, I would not be doing this. Or I never thought of something in that way, putting things in context and perspective in order to make better decisions. That is the Women Lead movement impact. And obviously we'll work on that. I don't know how long I'll be in the organization, because as I said, Women Lead movement will carry itself with or without me. This movement is larger than me. It's larger than the people who works in it. And I believe that whoever's going to be the future leaders of this organization is definitely going to take this organization to greater heights. Tammy, I didn't mention to you earlier that currently in Africa, it's going to take us on average, I think 148 years to achieve gender equality. Yes. In the United States, currently, it's going to take about 208 years to achieve gender equality. That is how bad it is. And when I talk about gender equality, I talk about it within the context of politics, education, health, and the economy, and numerous other categories. So if you read the McKinsey report, you'll see the McKinsey report on gender parity, that we are far off in terms of where we have to be. We might not even see gender equality within our lifetimes. That is the sad part. But we need to now start putting the building blocks in place, because we are so far off that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. For me, being very interested in politics and looking at the global statistics that says 21% of women is occupying executive positions within executive political positions like ministers, etc., and presidents. 25% is occupying positions as members of parliaments right across the world. That is how many women is currently occupying space within politics. That is a low number. You know, I would like to see more female presidents in the future, heads of state. We only have a handful of women that is taking leadership in that space. We need 50% or even 60% of women occupying positions within parliaments. We need more women occupying space as ministers in governments across the world. And it's not only an African problem, this issue of gender inequality. It's a global problem. That is why it's one of the SDG 5s to achieve gender equality, because it's such a massive problem. So in terms of politics, I would like to see a massive shift happening in that sense. But I also need to add that the fact that I'm asking for 50% doesn't mean that gender equality is necessarily a numbers game. It's not about having 50% of women there and 40% of, it's not that. It's about the quality of the women that we put in those positions that will drive the equality agenda for other women, or will drive the empowerment agenda for other women. Because currently, what we are seeing is that most of these women in these offices, and I'm not scared to say it, most of them are not promoting and pushing the agenda for women on this continent, whether economically, within health, within society, within politics. Because they themselves belong to political parties that are predominantly patriarchal, that are dominated by men. There's a saying that goes, patriarchy was started by men, but upheld by women. And that is a fact. There are many women that do not push the gender equality narrative. And we need more people that is a woman, that is open-minded about gender equality, that genuinely believes that women should be given opportunity and access to opportunity, just like men. So whether we have 40% of women in parliament, if that 40% of women is so powerful that they can change laws, that they can influence the lives of people, then that is enough. But we don't need 80% of women in parliament if they're going to do absolutely nothing to change the agenda for women. That is going to be very critical. We need different policies. We need policies that is existent but is amended because it's so weak. It doesn't speak to empowerment and the progression of women in society. We need women that is genuinely willing to push that agenda. Now, if I look at South Africa, just recently what happened with the establishment of the gender-based violence strategic plan, government did not do that out of their own volition. It took us many protests, going to parliament, coming out in our thousands of numbers to parliament and saying, this is what we want. Look at what the total shutdown movement did. They did incredible work, raising awareness. If it was not for that movement and many other organizations that supported them to raise the issue of saying, we need a plan on gender-based violence, government would not have reacted. Now, let me tell you the statistic. South Africa is boasting 50% of women, I think, in parliament and 48% or something as ministers. But where were this 50% of women that is in parliament? Why did they not think of bringing out a policy on gender-based violence and femicide? If that was really their intention, if that is really why they are there in parliament, why did they not come up with the idea of promoting a policy on gender-based violence? Why did we have to force the hand of government to do it? And I understand the importance of advocacy and activism, but if we have strong, independent, open-minded women in government, we don't need to force the hand of government to do anything. They would be pushing those agendas inside those institutions. So that's the one thing. I would like to see more women, donning senior management positions and CEO positions within the economy. Currently, the economy is doing the worst. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's some crazy statistic of 200 or 300 years before we achieve gender equality within the economic empowerment space. It's the worst currently in the world. Women are not being economically empowered. They are not acquiring positions, of CEO and senior manager, etc., because it's still being dominated by men. And in most of these businesses, white men. So there is a challenge, and we need to address those challenges. And for me, politics and the economy is two of the most critical sectors where I want to see women dominating. Basically, in a nutshell, Tammy, I would like to tell them that your capability and your ability and your power should never be oppressed, should never be downgraded in relation to a boy. You guys are equal. You have equal rights in the Constitution of this country. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you are equal. Your gender should not define what your future will look like. If you want to be an engineer, a civil engineer, you can be a civil engineer. If you want to be, even as a boy, if you want to be a hairdresser, you can be a hairdresser. You guys can be anything you want to be, irrespective of the social norms around you and that is forming you. And that people are saying that women belongs in the kitchen and that women should, look after the babies and they should leave their jobs and, look after the family. No, that is a choice. That is not a role. Society told you that that is your role. And you tell society that you don't want to do it, that you'll find other ways of ensuring that your family is secured. There's no reason why your husband can't take off to look after the children and you can actually be the breadwinner. Do not get distorted in your mind in terms of men are more powerful than women. Men are not more powerful than women. Women are equally capable, equally powerful, and equally able to do whatever men can do. That is a fact. It's not that we want to be men. We don't want to be men. What we are saying is that we need to start recognizing women for their significance, because you are significant, And it's very important also because I do know that many of you grow up in households where, you see your father, in a certain position within the family, and you see your mom in a certain position in society. But I'm telling you that does not have to be the way your future is going to look like. The fact that they're doing it does not mean that it's normal. There's nothing normal here in society. We are saying that if women were given equal access, equal rights and opportunities to men, our society would not be as distorted and as unequal as it is now. So find your talents and, become the best that you can be, and be whatever you want to be. Tammy, at this moment, like I said to you right in the beginning, I am just sort of, the main point for me now is to grow the organization. Like I said, I don't know if I will be with the organization within the next 2 or 3 years. And I really see my role in the organization as being the foundation layer. I don't see that. I don't think like Obama wrote in his book that about the promised land. I don't think that I will see the promised land necessarily, but I want to be part of inspiring those young women that will reach the promised land, and that will inspire other women to keep the fight for gender equality alive. So that role, I think, I will always be there. I will always be a mentor within the organization. I will continuing building partnerships for the organization, continuing, collaborating with organizations who wants to collaborate with us. So that's one aspect. I think for me personally, I think it's time for me also to do a PhD. So I would like to do my doctorate. I'm not sure if it's going to be in South Africa though, but I would like to pursue that in the next year or two. And I think that I've learned a lot over the last few years to enable me to do a master's, to do a doctorate degree. And like I said, I don't want to necessarily go back to politics because it's something that I love. But I do feel that somehow my life is shaping in a way that is going to force me back into politics, and to make a change through whether it's a member of parliament or whether a minister. But it's starting a political party at some point, but only women-led political party, and not only in South Africa, but on the African continent. I think that Africa generally has very low numbers of women political movements. And I think that I would like to be part of that revolution where we start this rise in more women political movements on the African continent and contesting in political office. I think I would like to play a role there, and just continuing my advocacy journey. I mean, there's many things, but I don't like to speak about those things before the time, because there's so many things happening at this moment. But I'm equally excited for what the future has in store. South Africa is facing a lot of difficult situations at this moment in time. I think we are going through one of the worst experiences in the history of South Africa. That now, in post-democratic South Africa and not pre-democratic South Africa, because that was a situation on its own. And I know that you guys feel very despondent, and that you feel that there is an opportunity for you, and that that nothing is going to come of your life. I want to tell you that it is possible. That there are opportunities out there. And if there isn't opportunities necessarily in your immediate space, that you create those opportunities. I think South Africa generally has become a country where it's okay for us to accept things and not necessarily put in the work and create things. And South Africa, I believe, has a melting pot of talent, and people with extraordinary abilities to be creators, and to transform this country. Get involved, however big or small, in organizations, in community projects, in your school, wherever, in order to drive change. It doesn't matter how big or small that project is, but get involved in shaping and starting to shape South Africa into the South Africa that we want to see.